What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to start our Green Day content on the channel. I want to start reviewing every single album that Green Day has ever made, and we're going to start from the very beginning with 1039 Smoothed Out Slappy Hour. So what I'm going to basically be doing with all of these album reviews, I'm going to be talking about the album, talk a little bit about the history of the album, and that kind of stuff. Talk about the songs I want to go through and talk about each individual song on the album, give a general impression of what I feel of the whole album in all, and go from there. So again, I'm going to be doing this for every single album. I wanted to start with this album. Now, this is a compilation of 3 different parts of Green Day's earlier on music, and this is the full release of all of those songs put together. So, when this originally came out, it was actually only the first 10 songs, and then we got another batch of, I think, 4 or 5, and then another 4. Very long album, and the album has a lot of different feel to it, which does kind of play into the fact that they were recorded at different times, so the sound of it is going to be a little bit different, the feel of the song is going to be a little bit different, and the album does take us on that kind of ride. Obviously, without Tré Cool came in on the next album. This is John Kiffmeyer, who's a very good drummer. We got to see him recently a couple of years ago. He played with the band on a couple select songs of the earlier days at the library, and a couple other songs. It was really cool to see him there. Unique, more unique, I guess, drum style, and overall, this album, I think personally, I really like this album. I always like going back to this album in the Green Day, and just all of their music all together. There are some songs here that I do think are almost entirely skippable. They do run into a couple problems, where a couple of the songs do sound just like another song, or they are maybe just a little bit too plain, but overall, I really love what they did with this album. The feel and the atmosphere of this album. So many songs have so many really cool parts, especially, again, and personally, like I said, the second half, the parts that really weren't even part of their first collection of music, their EPs, and I really like some of those last, like, 7-8 songs. I think they have some fantastic solos. They're a little bit more dirty, they got some sounds to them that you don't really hear in the first part of them, and this is obviously only me listening to the reissue where they put all these together. I think the reissue was 2007, so I don't know what these songs sound like all the way back then. I don't know the quality, but you can still tell nowadays that some of these songs are much well produced, way more produced than some of the other songs. But again, that doesn't hold them back. The album goes through a couple different ups and downs, where you get some songs that are maybe a little bit more generic, and then you get some of the songs that sound really cool. They got some interesting guitar patterns to them. They got some really cool solos, and that honestly, to me, is what I'll always love about this album. Is Billie Joe Armstrong is a great guitar player, and obviously we know that, okay, the melodies and all the stuff that he's ever come up with on guitar, not just singing, but on the guitar, throughout the years, he's a very talented guitarist. Not because of how fast he can play or the solos he can play, but just how well he puts together chords and draws things up. And this album does things a lot more different. I don't think it necessarily has those. It doesn't have the more complex chord structure and what makes songs sound really cool on, say, American Idiot. American Idiot doesn't have all these solos, and none of their songs really, after this album, and maybe a couple on Kerplunk, none of them really have flashy solos that, another band that I truly love, and I've made a lot of videos on them, the Smashing Pumpkins. One of the main things, Billy Corgan is a fantastic guitar player in the fact that he can do a lot of different things, including really playing some amazing solos and really going up and down the guitar. Billie Joe Armstrong doesn't do that. I don't necessarily know if he can. I truly would feel like the answer is he can't. I don't feel like he is in that kind of realm, but that's okay because he can do so many other things good. But basically what I'm trying to say is one of the great things about this album that I can always go back and listen to is how fun a lot of these songs on the guitar sound. And, the bass is always kind of an underrated part of Green Day. Mike Dirnt, he does a phenomenal job on bass here. You hear him, I think in a lot of albums, sometimes the bass kind of goes away and it gets pushed aside, and then some albums and even some songs, it comes back and it's really a powerful part of it. And obviously his voice, his background vocals to Billie Joe Armstrong is a very important and vital thing to all of their songs and all of their music from the very beginning to now. It's a very important part when you listen to it. And, they're extremely young at the time that they were making this album, okay? They're like 18, 19 years old, so it's not going to be perfect. There's obviously problems to this album, but what I will say, the reviews of this album were never very high. It was always very, very average reviews. I think this album is very, very good. Again, really, really like it. His voice, you know, it's not as clean and as good as it can be. I think he's put a lot of work into his voice, and I really, really love how his voice has evolved, and his voice, basically American Idiot on up. I really, really like how Billie Joe Armstrong's voice sounds. I think he's gotten a lot better. This album obviously has some problems with that. The drums, nothing truly special. You know, all of them, even Trey Cool, keeps a beat, can play extremely, extremely fast, doesn't play the most sophisticated or complex stuff. And can they? Yes, especially Trey Cool. He can do some really amazing things. But mainly, with the systematic approach that Green Day has is the drums keep a very, very fast beat for the most part. A lot of these songs are faster beats, and they do it extremely well, and they do it, you know, and they don't stray far from that. So overall, and I'm going to talk about all the songs on this, by the way. Overall, I think this album is very, very good. I think it does have some weaker parts to it. I think the first 10 songs, there are a bunch. I think there's 4 or 5 songs that definitely are skippable, whether it's because there's not really enough in there, you know, there's only like 3-4 chords for a lot of these songs, or whether it's just there's nothing truly entertaining about it. But I do think once you go throughout the album, and there's some songs in the beginning, At the Library, you know, and we'll talk about that in a second. Even Judge's Daughter, I really love that song. And there's a lot of songs post that are different. They sound different. They feel different. They got some really amazing guitar. Again, it sounds more, not really like grungy, but it sounds more distorted like. And again, it sounds like less produced. I don't know if he's doing different effects on pedals or whatever. But you know, they definitely go through different sounds as the songs go on. And overall, this is an album that I do go back to and listen to and have a lot of fun with. At the Library is one of my most fun songs that I play on the guitar. So overall, I really do love this album. I don't think it's the best album, you know, in the 90s, and this obviously came out in October 1st, 1991. This isn't the best album in the 90s, okay? Obviously, they made some phenomenal albums and really had their peak, and then had another peak, obviously, with American Idiot. But this is obviously what started them off, and this will always be a vital and important album to Green Day. So we're going to go through every single song. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on select songs again, but I kind of want to give my general impressions to most of the songs on the album. And again, starting with number 1, At the Library, this is a very, very important song for Green Day. This is a song that they have played throughout their history live. They've gone back to it, you know, when they pay any kind of homage to that first album or to early them. They play At the Library. I think this is a phenomenal song. I really like the guitar. It's a really fun guitar like lick that he does. It's just a really, really awesome song all the way through. This is, I think, I'd probably put this top 5 songs on this album, and I really don't think there's another song that even comes close to this song up until we get past, you know, songs 10, 11, 12. Then we start to get to some better songs. But At the Library, phenomenal song, a very, very important. You know, it's the first song you've ever heard from whatever band, okay? And those songs always kind of carry weight to it. You know, with them, At the Library is always going to be a vital song. To me, again, for the Smashing Pumpkins, I Am One, it's the first song you ever heard from them. That's always going to be a very, very special song to me, and I think to the band too, because that's the very first time you're ever going to hear them, besides obviously singles if they had them. Now, Don't Leave Me and I Was There, again, kind of go into what I was talking about in the beginning of the review, where they sound too similar. Okay, now, neither of those songs are bad songs, and I can listen to both of them and I can have a really good time, but just neither of them really have something super, super special about them that can differentiate. They really do sound like a part 1 and part 2 of a song. Not bad songs at all. I like the voice. I like his voice. I like his singing style. I like the drums. I like the guitar. A little bit more simplistic. I think once you go from At the Library to these 2 songs, and even the 4th song, Disappearing Boy, and that song does kind of slow down in the middle part of that song. Again, it's really 2, 3, 4 guitar chords, and that's really it. It's got the drums that follow along. It's got the background vocals from Mike Dirnt, but there's nothing that truly has any of those 3 songs stand out. I like all 3 of them. I think Disappearing Boy may be my favorite of those 3, but none of them all that special. Green Day, kind of same thing. Green Day, I do think, is a unique song. I think more unique than the past 3 songs, but again, a song that you don't necessarily can if I were to just give you a casual Green Day fan, I don't think would be able to point out Green Day. I do like the song. I think it's catchy. I think it's more fun and a little bit more dynamic than those last 3 songs, but again, you know, it doesn't do, I think, as much diversity, and I do think At the Library is the most diverse song of those first 5. We really don't start to get a little bit more diverse until after this. Going to Pasalaka is next, and this song is very, very good. This song, again, is a song that they go back to quite often. It's a very, very cool song. It's a very lengthy song, even though it really only has, I think, 4 chords in the entire song, and it repeats itself, and even the lyrics to it repeat itself very, very often. It's a very, very repetitive song, but it's different, and, you know, it's kind of a lengthy song for the fact that they are repeating themselves so much, but I really, really do love this song, and Green Day, I think, loves this song. Again, this is a song that when they play live or they talk about their early music and they're playing songs from the early 90s, this is a song they always go back to. Super catchy to play on the guitar, super catchy to listen to. Again, I'd say nothing truly special. That beginning part where he's kind of lifting off of the one note, that's kind of a uniqueness part to this song. And it's a faster paced song. And all of these songs I do think are pretty quick paced songs, which I do like. Okay, there's definitely a place in Green Day's kind of catalog of music for these fast songs. They don't necessarily slow down. Like I said, Disappearing Boy is really one of the only songs that has like a kind of lull in the middle to slow it down a little bit, but that's not really the name of the game of this album. I think this album, maybe it's just because how young they were and how like full of energy they were at the time. Not to say they don't have energy now, but you know, I think they know how to better balance a song now, and I do think that's a problem with this album. Although I like the fast pace, although I like the really cool guitar parts, and I like the solos, these songs come very, very fast, and when they're going so fast, you don't really get a lot of time to listen to them, and I honestly don't feel like there's that much depth to a lot of these songs too. It's not like they're so fast, but you can go back and hear something else. There's a lack of depth to it, probably because of how young they are in this album, but I do think that kind of shows, and I'm not picking on them, because what's a cool part of them is I think every album they get a little bit better, and especially even the problems with more recent albums, whatever you could pick out as problems with their more recent albums, I think they're better balanced. I think they have some slower parts. I think they're easy to go back and listen to, and there's more depth to them. They're a little bit more dynamic than these songs, and that's just because of age. That's because of maturity. That's because of the fact that this was the first album that they ever did, their first agreement, their first publishing deal, all that stuff. Obviously there's going to be some flaws in it, and there's going to be things that they have to get better at as time goes on. 16 and Road to Acceptance, I do think these are very, very good songs. They get better. I think this album, again, once we get past the 5th or 6th song, I think we start to get into some better songs. And 16 and Road to Acceptance are a little bit more different kinds of songs than the mixture of I Was There, Disappearing Boy, those kind of things. Again, are they all completely just clones of another? No, they all have their own unique things. He's not literally playing the exact same chords on all these songs, and again, that would be a pretty big problem considering he only plays a couple chords per song. But these two songs are a bit more unique. And they lead into a more diverse song in Rest, which is definitely more of what I was talking about in a couple minutes ago. Here's the thing, it's not necessarily the deepest song, and I do think that holds it back. I'm not the biggest fan of Rest. Yes, it's slower. Yes, it's got different guitar rhythms to it, and it's got just a different flow of his voice. Doesn't necessarily make it a better song, makes it a different song, makes it a more unique song for sure, but in terms of the actual music, I think his voice kind of holds itself a little bit too long. I don't necessarily think there's anything massively interesting about this song. I think this is especially towards the end, I think what I always think about with this song is it's a good enough lead up to Judge's Daughter, because Rest overall I think is one of the weaker songs on the album, I think entirely, and definitely it again slows down the pace. That's good. Maybe it's because we're getting towards the end of the album. Maybe it's for diversity's sake, that maybe he was looking through all these songs and he was saying a lot of these songs all kind of sound around the same kind of thing, and we need to have a song that's a little bit different. And there are some different songs, we're going to get to them as we get through the album, but if we're taking just these 10 songs, which is the first time you ever heard Green Day was just this collection of 10 songs, I definitely think it does weaken the album, because the better songs are totally 10 and on, and they're not 1 through 10. So overall, Rest is kind of a little bit too slow. Firstly, doesn't do enough things that are different, even though it is different. It's not special enough and doesn't have the ability to dive back into it and go through it a second time or a third time or fourth time. You can't really listen to Rest over and over and over, and honestly, you can't listen to a lot of these songs over and over again until we get to a certain part. And number 10 is actually one of my favorite songs on the album. I said it earlier, Judge's Daughter. I think the song is really good. His voice, not the best. Again, it's really not the best in the entire album, but what I love about the song is the guitar, okay? It's got only like a 3-chord structure for most of it, but the solo, I think, is a phenomenal solo. It was one of the first solos I ever learned how to play from Green Day, and ever, okay? Green Day was the first band, and they're the band that got me into playing the guitar, and, you know, the first songs I actually learned to play from actual bands was Green Day, okay? And I learned like Time of Your Life, American Idiot, stuff like that. Time of Your Life was the first song I ever learned, and then a song like At the Library was one of the first songs, I think, you know, within the first 5 or 6 songs I ever learned how to play on the guitar. At the Library was one of them, and then I started going through really this first album, and Judge's Daughter, at the time, very, very hard song, still a difficult song to play solo-wise, but a very, very unique solo. You know, it's got the classic bend that Billy Joe Armstrong likes to do, and it's present, oh my god, it's present so many times in these songs when we get into the solos, the kind of classic sound to it, but I really, really love the solo, and I think that elevates the song a lot. Now, Paper Larens and Why Do You Want Him, I think these are two very, very, very good songs. They sound different. This is obviously, you know, when you're listening to these songs all in a row, if you listen to, I think, the 18 or 19 songs all in a row, you're going to notice from Judge's Daughter to Paper Larens, there is a distinct difference. Paper Larens sounds completely different. Again, sounds more distorted. All of these songs sound more distorted, sound more kind of like just lesser quality, but maybe in a good way, because these songs are better. Just flat out, they're better. Paper Larens is a phenomenal song, and Why Do You Want Him are phenomenal songs. I think they get to be more personal songs. Why Do You Want Him is a more personal song. Billy Joe Armstrong, I believe, wrote that song at 14 or 15 years old when his mom was dating or married. I don't actually remember fully the story, but a guy who he didn't understand that because he didn't really like him as much. So he wrote that song, Why Do You Want Him? And I think that's a really, really clever idea. I think that's a more personal story, whereas a lot of these songs, they are more personal. You know, they're about earlier aged him, but at the same time, that song, I feel like, personally to me, holds higher weight just because of the content in it. But again, very, very good. They got more uniqueness to them. They sound the same in terms of the drums, in terms of bass, and Mike Dirnt's voice over Billy Joe Armstrong's voice is always going to kind of sound the same. But in terms of the guitar, in terms of the structure of the song, does sound fundamentally different than the first 10 songs. I definitely like these two. 409 and Your Coffee Maker and Knowledge. Obviously, these are very, very different songs. Knowledge, in particular, is obviously a song. It's a cover of a punk rock group in the area, and they've played this song quite a bit. I love this song, okay? The song, when I first listened to it, I'll tell you this, when I first listened to the song, I hated it. I actually hated it because it doesn't actually sound very good, to be honest. If you were listening to it, I think what you need to do is you need to put yourself in the moment of like the first time that it actually hit you that this song can be good. And I think when you get that, it's actually live, okay? When he has different people come up from on the stage and they play the different instruments. I think that's a really, really amazing idea. Green Day is always really, really amazing when it comes to live performances and getting fans, you know, to interact with them. And that's always a special thing, you know, when he says, who here can play the guitar? And then he shows them the 3 chords, and then he says, who can play the bass? And then Mike Dirnt walks them through, and you got the drums. Very simplistic song. Again, the guitar is literally just 3 chords. The bass is just 1 line going through, and the drums is just 1 beat going through the whole time. And it's a more fun song. I mean, it just sounds a little crazy, it sounds a little bit weird, but it's just an overall really you know, it's got some enjoyment to it. It doesn't necessarily, you know, if you showed somebody, this is Green Day, and you don't show them American Idiot, you don't show them anything from American Idiot, you know, you don't show them 21st Century Breakdown, you don't show them Basket Case and Dookie and all that stuff and Nimrod and anything like that. You show them Knowledge. I don't think they're going to get the picture of what Green Day is. I think this is an outlier song, but a song that's very, very special to Green Day. A song that they play you know, almost every single time they go out live, and a very, very special song, I think, for fans as well. Okay, now these last 5 songs sound very much similar to each other. They don't sound similar in all to the entire album, so I'm going to kind of characterize them and talk about them in one big group. And those songs are 1,000 Hours, Dry Ice, Only of You, The One I Want, and I Want to Be Alone. And again, especially especially those last 3 songs. Here's the thing, they really start to get very, very creative when it comes to the guitar work. They all have similar structure to, again, more simplistic guitar chords. There's only a couple chords per song, but all of them have a very, very cool solo to them. Now, I Want to Be Alone, it does have a very different guitar structure in general. He plays a very, very different. It's more sounding of At the Library. It's got that faster feel to it. He does more single notes. He does, things like that, whereas the other songs do rely more on the chords. And again, more dirtier kind of, distorted chords where you can't necessarily even make them out. But they all have some very, very phenomenal solos. And these are my favorite songs, I think, of the entire album. Really, again, from Dry Ice on, but especially these songs. Okay, 1,000 Hours, all these songs sound very, and 1,000 Hours is the name of this actual part of the album. This is its own unique part. And again, that's why Slappy, 1,000 Hours, and then 1039 Smoothed Out. Those are the 3 parts of this album. And again, they all sound distinctly different. Even these 5 songs do sound different than Slappy. These are more, again, maybe a little bit more personal. They aren't more like Crazy or like Drunken Them. They are very, very different on their own. And these are my favorite songs. Only of You, The One I Want to Be Alone. All of these songs, they're very, very good songs. And these are the songs I can go back to and listen to. And I at one point knew how to play these songs on the guitar, and then I forgot them. But very, very fun songs playing the guitar. Very, very fun songs to listen to. And that's really I think the total word for these last songs is fun. Okay, they're fun songs. They're not necessarily, you don't have to think super hard about them. You don't necessarily even have to read into them too much. Again, they're not that sophisticated. The solos totally are. They're very, very fun. They're very in-depth. He's a very good guitarist, especially back then. But they're not super sophisticated. There's not multi-layers to these songs. You don't have to listen to them too many times to get the gist of it. They are repetitive in their own nature. So, they even the best songs on this album do definitely have their own problems. But overall, a really, really fun album to listen to. I think, honestly, one of the most fun albums that Green Day has. It's an album that you just put on, listen to, have fun with it, don't overthink it, move on. It's not necessarily an album like Dookie or Nimrod or even like a Warning that does a lot of different things. Or, as we get later on in their records in terms of American Idiot, 21st Century Breakdown, Revolution Radio even, they're very, very different. Okay, they're very different, but this album overall, I really, really love. So guys, very long review. This is the kind of style I like to do, and this isn't even as long as I could have made this. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about Green Day's first album? What are your favorite songs? What are your least favorite songs? Let me know all those things. And again, Green Day content on our channel comes out every other Sunday. So in 2 weeks, we're going to be jumping into Kerplunk, doing the exact same thing, reviewing the entire album, kind of talking about general, the songs overall, talking about the album overall. I'm very, very excited to get into the album. The album's got a lot of really, really fun songs. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell icon so you guys know when these Green Day videos come out, and I will see you on the next video.